distance in the light, vibration of a thundercloud.
Hello, loved ones. This is Matt Stevens, and this is the My Sober Addiction podcast. And we are happy, healthy, wealthy, and free. And you know what else we are, loved ones? We are joined by the lovely Kitty. Say hello, Kitty.
Hello.
And with this being the 60th episode, she has joined me on the 20th, the 40th, and so I guess we're going to make it a thing. She's going to be here every 20th episode. That sounds good. But I also owe you, dear loved one, I owe you an apology because I have taken a couple of weeks off from the podcast. It's not that the podcast is not a priority. It absolutely is. But sometimes life happens and we do have to reprioritize and make sure that we get the things done that we absolutely have to get done. So as much as it pained me to do it, I just had to put the podcast on pause for about 2 weeks. But good news is here we are. We're back and we have the lovely Kitty with us. So isn't that nice? So the last time she was with us, we were talking about empathy because Kitty is very much an empath. What I mean by when I say she's an empath is that people will come up to her and they just seem drawn to her. Like if somebody has issues, something on their mind, just anything negative might have happened in their life and they just need to unload. The problem is they kind of seek her out. It's almost as if they do it psychically, as if they just find her and just let her have it, just unload all their feelings, all their everything on her. And well, I guess it's nice that she's able to be of service to her fellow human. However, it sends her away with all the weight of all of that. And that's the difference between someone who is an empath and someone who is not. Like, I'm not necessarily an empath. I'm not saying I'm not compassionate towards people, but I could be sympathetic. So that kind of segues into when we were researching for this episode, we wanted to look at what's the difference between empathy, sympathy, and compassion. Not that necessarily needed a lot of research. It did need a little bit, yes, because there is a very fine line between empathy and sympathy. But what brought this up was we were at a gas station, a local gas station, very close to where we live. And we saw a young lady outside the gas station. Well, I'm going to let Kitty tell this part of the story here. Go for it, Kitty.
Okay. So we go into the store, and there was a lady standing outside, and she's kind of pacing back and forth on a phone. And we just went on in past them. On the way back out, Matt kind of pushes me past her. And as I go past her, I look down, and I notice her hands are swollen real big. And that's the only thing I noticed about her, like they were about to bust. It looked like bee sting swollen or something. So we get in the car, and I told Matt about it, and he started explaining to me that she was dope sick. And then I'll let you explain what you told me.
She had noticed her hands, and clearly this lady was in distress. Yes, I'm very sympathetic to her. I understand where she is, but I also understand that the way she's kind of pacing around and working her phone and all that stuff, she's not looking for help. She's looking to raise some money or get somebody to spot her some dope or something. And way her hand, like Kitty had mentioned, her hands, she didn't realize what that is. Her hands had abscesses where they were swollen pretty bad. She definitely needed to go and get that looked at. She needed some antibiotics. And any addicts who's ever used needles knows that if you miss a shot, meaning it doesn't go in the bloodstream, then it goes in the tissue around it. Yes, it can set up an abscess, which is not good. It's actually, it's an infection, and it can absolutely be very bad. I mean, there have been cases where people have passed away from that. So did the lady need to get into a hospital and get help? Yes. But I'm also certain that she knows that. I mean, both her hands are swollen like softballs. She was aware of the fact that she needed to get that looked at. And now with Kitty being as compassionate as she is, she wants to help her. I'm like, and I want to help her too, but I also know she ain't there. I mean, she's just not. The only thing she would want from us would be to enable her somehow. And I just, dear loved one, we cannot do that. As much as we feel bad for these people, we just can't do it. Because if we were to do that, that might be the one that kills them. And that's another thing that Kitty is especially knowledgeable about, because she has had people in her life that were in active addiction, and she enabled them until she realized that's what she was doing.
I was feeding the addiction. Instead of helping them, getting them help or showing them the tough love they needed in order to get off of the substance, I was helping them continue with the substance. And there is a fine line between compassion and sympathy and seeing your loved one, when you're hugging them and you're basically hugging bones or a skeleton of your loved one because the addiction has taken over. And you just want to see them better, and you want to see them happy and healthy and eating and just better. But you're giving them money for groceries, and they're turning around taking the money and they're spending it on the drugs or the alcohol, whichever their addiction may be. You can't just hand them money. You can't enable. You can't give them things that's going to support their habit. You've got to show them the tough love, and you've got to stop. And that's the hard part.
Right.
So.
And another example, and this is kind of on the other end of the equation, though, is when we see, and I'm going to use quotation marks here, dear loved one, please understand, but when we see what people call crazy people on the street.
Street people,
and they may be acting a little bit crazy.
Talking to themselves.
Talk to themselves. Like, for example, Kitty has another person that she knows. It's a young man that grew up with her kids, and well,
this little fella, I tell you, it breaks my heart every time I see him. I can say I'm all three with him. I'm empathetic in the fact that I'm taking in his pain and his hurt. I'm sympathetic in the way that I feel so bad for him, and I'm compassionate in the way that I want to do something to help him. It breaks my heart. Right after high school, he had some traumatic events that caused him a mental breakdown and paranoid schizophrenic. Well, he was living large. They were drug related. He's never going to be the same. But to somebody on the outside, collectively, I'm going to say, because not all people are this way, but collectively we see this, somebody walking down the street and talking to themselves or not well kept or well kept and just walking down the street. Collectively, we judge them. There's an underlying story. Not only to mention this could be somebody's brother, somebody's sister, somebody's father, mother, child. And it is. We don't realize that something got them to that point. And it's not just, they did it to themselves. Because, look, nobody wakes up saying, I want to be a paranoid schizophrenic, or I want to grow up and be an addict or an alcoholic. I want to live on the streets, or I want to live the bare minimum. That's not what we were born saying that we want to accomplish.
Right. I mean, that's a conversation I had to have with one of my family members. It's like, well, I was asked, how could you have let this happen? It's like, well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it just did. I mean, I was at a time in my life where things were not going great, and somehow or other I found opioids, and it filled that hole perfectly. And
you didn't have the pain to think about anymore because it numbs it.
I was completely numbed out, and I was perfectly happy with that.
And then before you know it, you're not.
You're not even worried about that anymore, which I guess that's still good. I don't know.
You're just trying to stay not sick.
That's trying, get to the point where, especially with opioids, it's like at first it serves its purpose, sure, but very, very soon after it becomes just, I gotta not be sick.
Same thing with alcohol.
Yeah, definitely that, and even sometimes even more so with alcohol, because alcohol withdrawals can cause seizures, which can kill you. And that's something that I have talked about on the podcast before, is that opioid withdrawal cannot exactly directly kill you. Yes, it can cause things to happen. It can absolutely cause your blood pressure to spike to a point where it causes you to have an aneurysm or a stroke, but the aneurysm or the stroke is what kills you. The alcohol can directly cause a seizure, which can kill you. And so that's kind of the difference there.
And you can, what they say, you can drink yourself to death.
You absolutely can, yes. When we're talking about empathy, sympathy, and compassion, we've got to be careful not to become enablers, because that's kind of where compassion leads to. It's like when you get compassionate about somebody, it's like, okay, I'm feeling compassion for this person. I want to help. But if they're not ready for help, if they're not ready to go and get in a facility somewhere, then they're probably just looking for someone to enable them, really. And at that point, you may seem like you're heartless, or you may seem like you just don't care, but really that's the most caring thing you can do, is to walk away from that person. Kind of like the lady at the gas station. When I pushed Kitty away from her, I'm like, no, don't even talk to her. And of course, Kitty don't know. She's a normie. She didn't understand what she was looking at. But once I explained it to her, she's like, oh, right.
There's nothing I really can do.
No, not at that point. I mean, would we love to? Sure. If we could tell that lady, hey, get in a car, I probably wouldn't do that, but I'd be like, listen, we're going to get you somewhere. They'll come and get her and take her to the hospital. It's probably not the best way to do it. They'd probably rather you just bring her in yourself. And if I was absolutely certain that she wasn't going to try to get some enabling out of us.
Yeah.
Is that even a way of wording? Yeah, you get the point.
Yeah.
You get what I'm trying to say, loved one. But, like in that lady's case, she was not looking for help. She was looking for help to get not dope sick. I can guarantee you that. But we're not going to do that. And yes, it may seem like we don't care, but that's the most caring thing you can do, is to walk away.
And then on top of it, we happen to be educated enough to know when to and when not to, where some people aren't educated enough to know the difference. And just like some of the street people, or whatever people want to call them, they're still humans and they're still in there. Just like the little fellow that the boys went to school with. To somebody else on the outside who didn't know, you can't just go up and say, hey, do you want to ride? Or let me take you to get you something to eat. For years, I wanted to help him. But
Right.
he's at the highest level of help that he can receive at this point.
Right. I mean, he's not, his problem isn't that he's in active addiction or anything. His problem is that
The
he
addiction
was,
caused it, or the drugs caused it.
he was in the dope game. I'll tell you, I'll put it in terms that the average addict can understand. He was in the dope game, and he was living somewhere else at the time. He was in the dope game. He got caught up with some bad people. Some bad things happened to him, and he is, obviously traumatized, yes, but I got to believe that there are some injuries that he sustained that, he's not,
Never going to be the same.
He's never going to be the same again. And while we see people like that, and people like that, absolutely be compassionate, absolutely be sympathetic, because he's doing the best he can. He's actually doing pretty well.
Yeah. It's still sad.
It's still sad to see. But so like with Kitty wanting to give him a ride or give him, take him, get him something to eat. Sure. If that's what he wants to do, great. That would be fine. Because one thing he's not going to ask you to enable him to do something else, because he's not interested in anything else. All he's trying to do is live his life and do well. Of course, to the average person that does not know his story, sees him on the street, they would think he's some crazy
person on drugs.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Or
and he's not, or an alcoholic, and he's not.
Yeah.
But that's just where we've got to stop prejudging people. And that's hard to do. It is. A lot of people because of the programming that we've received from the world, and we see people like that on the street, and we think, well, there's a drug addict. Not necessarily. Getting back to the empathy, sympathy, and compassion, we're talking about the differences. We realize there's a very fine line between those, to the point where we actually did a little research on it. We looked it up, and believe it or not, there are actually whole articles written explaining the differences between empathy, sympathy, and compassion. As I've said before, Kitty, being an empath, of course, she's been a little bit freed from that lately and is kind of loving it. Well, not so much, because the other day you took on a lot of people's...
Yes, 3 different people's life situations.
Yeah, and were pretty stressed out and couldn't figure out why until it finally hit you later that, damn, that's what my problem was, is I was kind of living in their world.
Yeah, and I had to stop and realize, of course, it was a few days later. I couldn't understand why, but a few days later, I was like, that's exactly why. I had to stop and release and recognize that those weren't kitty problems. Those were those people's problems. And I had to release that. And once I released that and realized those were not my issues or concerns, that all I could do was just be there for the person and not take on their pain and their issues, but just be there as a listener. It was easier.
Because that's when you can be sympathetic.
Yes.
Which is great. I mean, you should be. That's being a good human to another human.
But not empathetic.
But not necessarily empathetic, because empathetic brings you both down. Doesn't help either of you, really. Well, I don't know. Maybe it does help them. Maybe they dump it on you and now it's your problem, not theirs.
Exactly. It lifts their load and it makes your load heavier.
Right. Yeah. Right. But, being compassionate, of course, always be compassionate. But realize that sometimes when you are intending to be compassionate, make sure you're not enabling. Because in a lot of cases, I know that there are a lot of addicts out there who will lead you to believe.
Take advantage of, yeah.
They'll manipulate the situation. They'll lead you to believe that you are being compassionate, when really you're enabling. I guess you just need to be street smart enough to know the difference, or just have that line in the sand and say, listen, I will take you to get help. Mm-hmm. If you don't want that, then let me know when you do. Yeah, there's nothing else I can do. Exactly. Let me know when you do, because I will take you to get help. And in a lot of cases, they think, I don't need help. I can do this by myself. No. No. If anybody's listened to this podcast long enough to know, I am a huge advocate for going to rehab, because you've just got to completely remove yourself from the situation. You're out of control. And I don't care what little game plans you concoct in your head and you think, I can do this. I'll taper off.
I know my limits, my body's limits. Yeah,
I'm going to taper off and I'm going to do this and this and that. Yeah.
I'm going to quit on Monday or after the holiday.
Yeah, it's always tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. So how about you call me when you're ready? Until then, I'm not going to continue to enable you.
Right. And that's kind of leads us to family showing tough love, because you have also had quite a few family members who have dealt with addiction, and it was hard for you to realize that you were enabling them.
Oh, yes.
Well, because they manipulate the situation and make you think you're being compassionate.
Yeah, they'll, and I'm not going to say it's them using you, because I strongly believe it was explained to me years ago that, like with opioids, and you can even do it with alcohol. It's just like, you have a handful of pills. It's more or less you talking to those pills and not your loved one, because after a while, the pills or the substance has taken over. So, imagine having 10 pills or a handful of pills, and I want you to talk to those pills in your hand and ask them a question and wait a few minutes.
You got no answer.
You're not going to get an answer out of those pills. The same thing. So if you're talking to your loved one, what kind of response you really think you're going to get from your loved one? None, because it's not your loved one. It's the pills or the substance or the alcohol. So you're going to get some crazy answer that's not really them.
That brings up a whole other thing. It's like I've talked about people being on autopilot.
Yes.
And people, and it doesn't have to be somebody who's addicted to a substance to go on autopilot. We all do it. We all do it most of the day. Most of the day, every day, is on autopilot. Most people only remember events. And I think recently I used an example of, like, if you get up to go to work, most people vaguely remember getting ready for work. Then let's say they're walking out to their car and they drop their keys. Okay, well, they remember that. That was an event. That's something that sticks out. So they drop their keys in the driveway, okay, whatever. Then they get in the car, they drive to work, they get to work, and now oh, wow, cool, I got a really good parking spot today. And there's two events. You drop in your keys and you get in a great parking spot. But everything in between, most people were like, wow, I don't remember any of that. I drove to work. Obviously, I made it, but I was completely on autopilot. And when addicts are on autopilot, you may as well talk to a wall. If you're not talking about what they need to hear, meaning the addiction, because the person that you love, your family member, is still in there, but at the time they're kind of just under control of the drug. I mean, I know a lot of religious people will be like, well, they're under the possession of some type of spirit. And I try not to go there all the way, although I have been there and I understand. Yeah. I mean, you could talk to me and I would be, well, there were days that I would say, I'm not going to buy drugs today. And that's what I'm saying in my head. But physically, I'm doing all the moves. I'm doing everything it takes to go and buy drugs. That's just kind of how it is. It's completely on autopilot. So when you're talking to somebody that you love, you got to realize if they're not ready to hear it, well,
you're not going to be able to help them until they're ready for your help. And it's actually not you going to help them. They're going to have to be the one to want the help and get the help. All you can be is a support system. And watch for the cues that they're ready for treatment. They're actually, when you say, hey, we'll get you help, and they're willing to go to a facility. They realize that it's either going to be jail, an institution, or death, and that everything is hopeless. They have no choice. Or they've already been, say, in a mental institution or
been to jail.
Or they're in front of the judge, and the judge is saying, look, you've got an option. You can go to jail or you can go to treatment. Those types of situations. Or
well, again, kind of with the cues, I mean, it's like a lot of times people will be like, look, I want to quit, but I'm a hopeless case. It's over. I can't do nothing. And at that time, you can, that's usually when you can say, listen, if we can get you some help, would you take it? If they say yes, that means they're not really in denial anymore. Because a lot of times they're in denial. And they'll be like, oh, no, I'm good. I don't need help. But if you come to the person and be like, hey, listen, I'm willing to take you to get help if you want to. Would you be willing to do that? And if they say yes, well,
then they're ready.
Then they're ready. But there are little subtle signs that you may see. I mean, if you have a loved one and it's time, then you're going to know. And you may be wrong. You may offer to take them to get treatment there, and they may be in denial still and say, no, everything's fine. I'm good. Yeah, sure you are. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not going to enable you, so let me know when you're ready.
Mm-hmm. Or they just look around and, and they say, I'm just tired of living like this. I can't keep doing this. And they're just truly tired of living in addiction and being sore when they don't have the drug that they need or the alcohol that they need. And they're destroying everything around them.
So what we've been talking about is empathy, sympathy, and compassion and what the differences are. And as I said, we were kind of researching it a little bit. Not that you need to do a whole lot of research on that, but it is nice to get a little clarification. For example, and I'm going to cite my source here, but there's a website called CompassionIt.com, and I say it as in, it's not compassionate, it's compassion and then the word it. So CompassionIt.com. So I am definitely going to credit them because they have a very good article about it, and they sum it up with some bullet points. Empathy means that you feel what a person is feeling. And that's something that has kind of plagued Kitty. I hate to say it that way, but yeah, it has kind of plagued her because people have always sought her out. It's as if psychically they just know to come to her and dump all their problems on her. And I'm sure they walk away feeling great. Like they just lifted the weight of the world off their shoulders. And then it's like, well, yeah, but that's great. Now here she's sitting over here with it.
I just love to talk to her. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They do. I just love to talk to you. I feel so much better afterwards.
Yeah.
And Kitty's like, well, why do I feel like shit afterwards?
I'm heavy and you're light.
Right.
That's okay.
Yeah. So anyway, but she's gotten better about managing that.
Yes.
And then that brings up the second one, sympathy. Sympathy means you can understand what the person is feeling. And I think that maybe she's learning to be more sympathetic than empathetic sometimes.
Yes.
Not that being empathetic is a bad thing.
No.
It's actually a great thing. But you can't let it bog you down either. So there's that fine line.
And overwhelm you, yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I've known times when... Geez, I mean, Kitty's usually in a pretty good mood and all that, but then she may be gone to work or whatever and then come in and just be like, bleh. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? And she won't even know half the time. Like the last time it took you, 3 days to figure it out?
Just be mentally exhausted and not even know why. But then if I backtrack and I go to some of the conversations, or something triggers something that was said in a conversation that I'd had with somebody earlier, it clicks. And I'm like, oh, I know now.
Yeah, that's why I feel like I do, because I took on that person's issues.
Yeah, and they might not know it. It's like a magnetism kind of that I'm unaware that I have, and they're unaware that I have. And then before you know it, we're both conversing about their issues, and it just comes right on out.
Yeah,
So.
and they seem to feel so much better.
Yeah.
Right, and you're like, well, I'm glad somebody feels better here.
Exactly.
Anyway, and the last one is compassion. Is the willingness to relieve the suffering of another. And of course, that is what we all want to do, and we all should strive to do.
Yes.
As long as we understand that we are not enabling someone.
And we're truly helping someone, and not continuing any kind of destructive behavior.
Right. And that's kind of why we brought up the young man that she knows who had something traumatic happen to him. He is not looking for anyone to help him do anything.
No.
Which makes you more willing to help him, because he doesn't need help as far as substances is concerned. Just like if she sees him walking down the street in the rain, she wants to offer him a ride.
Yeah.
That, of course, that's being compassionate. We would never suggest you should not do that.
Right.
You've got to be safe first.
Yeah, use common sense about it. So you just got to... Just know the difference between compassion and truly helping somebody versus enabling them and helping them continue bad destructive behavior to themselves and the people around them.
Yep. And if you don't know the difference, then use your intuition.
Yeah.
Because intuition is your best friend. That's usually your higher self telling you to make this move or not make this move.
Yeah, if it feels right, it's right. And if you have to second guess it for one time, it's wrong.
Right. Yep. So anyway, loved ones, thanks to my good friend Clive, I do have the website up. The mysoberaddiction.com website is up and running. No, we haven't done a whole lot with it yet, but it is there. And you can still find me on X at Matt Stevens, MSA, as in My Sober Addiction. Also on YouTube. Now on YouTube, the videos that I do are a lot more candid, very much not edited, and they are very much more woo-woo. I don't really talk about addiction much unless I'm just referencing something that's happened in the past or whatever, but not so much. But if you want to hear some more of my woo-woo talk, that'd be great. Go to YouTube and find Matt Stevens MSA, as in My Sober Addiction again. See, I keep this simple, loved one. It's always Matt Stevens MSA, no matter what. Anyway, loved one, you got any final thoughts, Kitty?
Oh, just be kind to each other. That's it. Thank you for having me on here. I've enjoyed it. And
thanks for being here. Yeah. And you're going to be back on episode 80.
Yes.
That seems what we're going to do every 20th episode.
I enjoyed it.
Well, good. All right, loved ones. That's all we've got. And I will be back next week. I do not see any more hiatuses in the near future anyway. So I now appreciate your understanding on that. But that's all we got.
Stay safe and sober.
I do love you, and I'll be back directly.
There is a